Oh man, I love the work you're doing. I love the tweets you've been putting out. I don't know. There's no statistical probability or any statistical machinations that could possibly make Washington D.C. look safe. I mean, we know it from our eyes. We know it from the statistics. What are Democrats doing? And was the manufacturing of improved crime statistics maybe part of their plan?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get into people's minds about why they're doing the things that they're doing, but there are a few things that are clear. I mean, we'll go through in a minute how high the crime rates are in D.C., but people have to understand that there's two different measures that we have of crime. We have crimes reported to police, and then we have total crimes. And the difference is that only about 40% of violent crimes are reported to police, only about 30% of property crimes are reported to police. And we've studied this for decades, what determines the rate that crimes are reported to police. And what you find is that when crime is very high, when people don't believe that the criminals are going to be punished, caught and punished, they're less likely to take the time to go and report crimes to the police. So given how high the crime rates are in D.C., it's very likely that the rate that crimes are reported to police are even lower in D.C. than they are for the rest of the nation. So, just first of all, keep in mind that when we go through these numbers in a second, that the vast majority of crimes aren't reported to police. The second issue is in D.C., the police unions for years have been complaining about manipulation of the crime data. That what's happening is that higher ups in the police department have ordered incidents to be reclassified so that they won't show up in the data that the city reports and won't show up in the FBI data. In 2020, there was allegations of this. In July, even before Trump got involved, there were allegations of this. And one can go and find cases where victims of crime have gone and people who have ended up being convicted of felonies, when the victims would go back and just check the records for their cases and find that DC wouldn't even have it reported in their overall data set. So there are good reasons to be concerned about how accurate these data are and that they're underreporting. But even given that, DC has an amazingly high crime rate. The last kind of complete final data that we have for FBI's data on reported crimes is from 2023. And, Democrats want to go and make DC the 51st state. So one comparison that you can make is just comparing DC to other states. And DC's murder rate, well, first of all, its violent crime rate is 54% higher than the violent crime rate in the highest state, which is New Mexico. It's 220% higher than the average. If you look at murder, DC's murder rate is 169% higher than the highest state, Louisiana. It's 523% higher than the average. And you take something like robbery, it's just incredible. DC's robbery rate is 370%. That's almost 4 times higher than the rate in the highest state, which is Maryland, and almost 1,000% higher than the average state. And even if you go and break it down and compare it to other cities, DC has an amazingly high rate. If you look at DC compared to murder, let's say compared to the 20 largest cities, it has a higher murder rate. In fact, it's 50% higher than the murder rate for the worst of those top 20 cities. If you look at violent crime rate, DC has a higher violent crime rate than any of the 20 most populous cities in the United States, and it's second highest in any of the 25 most populous cities.
It is stunning. You could cut the crime rate in half, you'd still be outpacing the country. It's just remarkable. And and there's just not been an honesty about it. Although obviously behind the scenes, Democrats are like, "Oh, I'm glad this is happening." In front of the cameras, they say something entirely different. You did something really great in the last few days, and I've read it and I've shared it with a lot of people. It's part of the reason I wanted to bring you on. You've put together some of the notions about how we can fix this. I mean, it's one thing to say we got a problem, and obviously the president has not only said we got a problem, he's leaned into it. But now you can see how this pathway gets us to a safer, more pleasant nation's capital. Talk a little bit about where the Trump administration is headed and where this could really get the biggest bang for its buck.
Well, it's not rocket science. In order to reduce crime, you have to make it riskier for criminals to commit crime. And you can do that with higher arrest rates, higher conviction rates, longer prison sentences. You can also do it by making it so that victims are better able to go and defend themselves. And the Trump administration has really been dealing with all of these issues. So, you look at the number of patrol officers in D.C. They have about 1,300 patrol officers in the police department there. But that means you aren't going to have more than, let's say, at most 400 on duty at any point in time. Well, you have 400 patrol officers to go and protect a district of 721,000 people. It's not surprising to hear statements for years from the police union there that they're stretched very thin. It's simply very difficult for them to do their jobs. And on top of that, the city has imposed all sorts of restrictions on them that make it very difficult for them to do the job even with the reduced number of officers. So you have the Trump administration going and putting out FBI agents from around the country, DEA agents, ATF agents, others. You may be adding another 800 or so agents to the street. That's a large percentage increase in effectively the number of people that you have patrolling there. So arrests, as you mentioned earlier, have gone up. That's one way to make it riskier for criminals to go and commit crime. The other is people have to realize that the U.S. attorney for D.C. is responsible for prosecuting adult crimes by adults. During the Biden administration, Biden had appointed the U.S. attorney there, and he basically wasn't interested in prosecuting a lot of crimes. In 2022, 67% of the arrests were not prosecuted. Even in 2023, 55% of the arrests were not prosecuted. Judge Janine Pirro is promising to go after these people, to go and make sure that they are actually facing punishment. The other thing that the administration is trying to change is how juveniles are treated. Juvenile crime is prosecuted by the district itself, and they've insisted on taking these individuals to family court rather than to criminal court. And what happens is that it's very rare that these individuals, even when they are prosecuted, and a lot of them aren't, but even when they are prosecuted, that they face any real penalty. So the Trump administration is asking for legislative changes that would allow the U.S. attorney to go and prosecute somebody who commits murder or robbery as a 17-year-old to be prosecuted as an adult. So that would be helpful. It's one reason why you've seen so much juvenile crime. And then finally, this issue of letting individuals be able to go and defend themselves, that's one way of making it risky for criminals to commit crime. The Trump administration has essentially pressured D.C. to speed up the process for issuing concealed carry permits. Prior to that, recently, 6 months was a short amount of time for D.C. to approve somebody getting a concealed carry permit. Now it's going to take about 2 weeks for them to do that. There are other changes that the administration would like to see in terms of making it so that people can go and carry in more places, but that's going to take time.
Streaming phone just popped out of the fucking holder.
There was a whistleblower complaint lawsuit, and in that you see emails that show officers being instructed to downgrade a crime in hopes of making the stats look better. How troubling is that, and how, for the purpose of just getting a day-to-day police strategy together, how dangerous is it to be
I decided to do it for next door.
downstream manipulating the statistics, because I guess
I don't even know where this place
decisions are based on that, and security decisions are based
Apparently
on
there's
statistics. It's one thing for the politics of the public, but it actually affects the way you staff up every day to create the best safety structure.
Right. I mean, I believe that's the case you're talking about from 2020. So that's something that indicates that this has been going on for a while. And there were lots of cases that this officer alleged. She alleged that there was a case, for example, of domestic violence with assault with a dangerous weapon, that police officer had properly filled out the police report to mention that a dangerous weapon was being used there. But a police captain there in the D.C. Police Department reclassified it as, quote, sick person sent to the hospital, end quote. And so it wasn't even, so what you had was a violent felony that was reclassified to not even being a crime at all, not even a misdemeanor. And you have a number of cases like that. And so you're right. I mean, it affects how the resources for police are going to be distributed. It also affects kind of whether DC is going to feel pressure to go and spend more money on police.
That's it. It does affect funding decisions potentially, right? They're actually making it harder for themselves to get funds to solve the problem by manipulating the stats, right?
Yeah, well, they make it harder for them to get funds, but they also may affect how they're going to allocate funds. DC has a fair amount of money that they do, and they have different buckets that they can go and put it in. And if they want to go and claim that the crime rate is much lower than it actually is.
So I thought the Raising Cane's was somewhere else.
There are going to be some politicians who are going to say, well, we're going to go and spend it on some other social program rather than on making it risky for criminals to commit crime.
Yeah, it's just mind-boggling. One last thing I want to get to, because I think you said it perfectly. The best deterrent for crime is punishment of the past crimes. That's the surest thing to make sure someone in the future doesn't try to commit another crime. Today, there was a fascinating action by the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who I think has built quite a record already in his first 8 months in the administration, just getting stuff done. Yanked about 6,000 visas for students who are in the country who had criminal records that should negate them. The idea that we weren't doing that obviously creates a disincentive, but that's or an incentive for people to stay and commit more crimes because there's no penalty. But that's another important message to foreigners who come to the soil.
Right. Well, I mean, look, personally, I think one of the reasons why we've had a drop in violent crime this year is because of what the administration's doing with those legal and illegal immigrants who have committed crime. So the obvious thing is if you remove people who are criminals, in this case, individuals who had committed robbery, aggravated assaults, other types of violent crimes, that reduces violent crime. But it also puts others on notice that you better not be arrested, because if you get arrested, you're going to get deported, whether you're an illegal alien or somebody who's in a student visa that's there. And so, the fact that there's deterrence will keep people from committing crime. And, for illegals, they can be deported anyway. But one way to keep from being deported is to keep off a police radar, not get arrested. And the way to do that is for even the ones that you don't catch, not to be committing additional crimes right now.
It's so simple, and yet it's sometimes a head scratcher to realize that DC and, quite frankly, the State Department wasn't doing these basics of public safety, public security. John, for folks who love work you would do such amazing. What's the best way to stay in touch with all the good work?
So everything we're talking about is on our website at crimeresearch.org, crimeresearch.org.
a must, folks. If you care about this issue at all, you should check in on John's work every day. He is such a remarkable resource, and he just gives people the facts, which is the best way for us to get informed and get into action. And follow him on X as well. His X account is amazing at John R. Lott Jr. At John R. Lott Jr. I follow him. He is fantastic. John, we'll have you back on real soon because I have a funny feeling this issue is only going to get bigger in the next few weeks.
Right, thanks. By the way, later this week we're going to put out a report on errors in the FBI data on active shooting cases.
Oh, that's huge.
So it's not just DC that has problems with crime data. The FBI does too. So
that doesn't surprise me. I can't wait to see the work you've done though, because it'll be epic. That's really big stuff. That's good. John, we'll have you back on for that. Thanks again for joining us today.
Well, thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, more interviews, more news, more exclusive insights. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss it.
Investigative journalist John Solomon. This is Just the News Radio on Sirius XM Patriot.
At Just the News, we break the stories others in the media ignore or are too afraid to tell. We did it on Russia collusion, Hunter Biden, and the security and intelligence failures that preceded January 6th. Our stories have real impact and reach because we stick to the facts. I'm John Solomon. You can help me expand our honest, unvarnished, and unbiased reporting by becoming a premium member at Just the News. You'll get an ad-free experience and exclusive member-only access to events, and you'll be helping us dig up more truth. Join today at justthenews.com/subscribe. I don't know how anyone can get a restful night's sleep with a CPAP mask strapped to their face all night. In or without it, breathing is disrupted, and we all know how important a restful night's sleep is for our health. If you snore, you're at a heightened risk of requiring a CPAP machine later. Now is the time to stop snoring. One of the smartest, fastest, easiest ways to stop snoring is Zyppah. Zyppah, Z-Y-P-P-A-H. Zyppah is the comfortable doctor-designed mouthpiece that can stop snoring as fast as the first night. Don't be fooled by imitators. Zyppah was proven in a 600-patient clinical trial. And with over 500,000 units sold now, Zyppah is the stop snoring device of choice. No more being nudged awake for snoring. No more sleeping in separate rooms. No more feeling tired and foggy all day because you didn't get a good night's rest. This may be your best chance to solve your snoring problem now or face having to wear a CPAP mask later on. Zyppah, Z-Y-P-P-H. That's Happy Z, spelled backward. Get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code SNORE, S-N-O-R-E, at Zyppah.com. At Just the News, we break the stories others in the media ignore or are too afraid to tell. We did it on Russia collusion, Hunter Biden, and the security and intelligence failures that preceded January 6th. Our stories have real impact and reach because we stick to the facts. I'm John Solomon. You can help me expand our honest, unvarnished, and unbiased reporting by becoming a premium member at Just the News. You'll get an ad-free experience and exclusive member-only access to events, and you'll see how it was. Dig up more truth. Join today at justthenews.com/subscribe. This is Patriot.
The only leader in the world that can talk to both of them and bring them both to a meeting is Donald J. Trump, the president of the United States. He's the only one. And the fact that he's willing to do it is something that every American, including Democrats, should be happy that we have a peace president. We should be proud that we have a president that's made peace a priority in his administration.
Conservative principles live here. Most people have no idea there's an invisible gap in their home's protection. This invisible threat is house stealing. Con artists pick a house. They transfer the deed of this house into their name by obtaining the forms, using the fake IDs, and filing the paperwork with proper authorities. Now they own the home. Protect your home from this invisible gap. Check on your home's title right now at HomeTitleLock.com. Be sure to use promo code RADIO, and they will send you a complete title scan of your home's title. And your first 30 days of triple lock title protection is free. HomeTitleLock.com.
Andrew Wilkow. The two biggest compliments I get on this program are you found this program and you spent some time listening to it. You're not just a listener. You're part of the Wilkow majority. The other is my Democrat friend says this. What do I say back? Facts, arguments, and firepower to win at the debate. Hey, I used one of your arguments, and it worked. Andrew Wilkow and the Wilkow majority. Weekdays, noon to 3 p.m. East on Sirius XM Patriot 125. That's one of the greatest compliments I can get.
This is Just the News Radio on Sirius XM Patriot.
I'm investigative journalist John Solomon, and this is Just the News Radio on Sirius XM Patriot. I want to stay on the topic we just went over with the great John Lott. It is a remarkable moment to see a nation's capital, which for years has bent under the weight of increasing crime, letting the violent felons right back out in the street, manipulating the crime statistics. So people will say statistically isn't as bad as our eyes and our life experience tells us. And then all of a sudden, somebody says, I'm not going to take it anymore. And Donald Trump said that, and within a few short days, Washington, D.C. is a safer place already. Big arrests, big a show of force every night, and a sense in the city, even among Democrats when they're not on camera, that we're actually going to head to a better moment. I thought I'd turn to a fantastic resource. We talk to him often. He's one of the great constitutional law lawyers and law professors in the world, and an eloquent voice, a man who understands the weaponization of government because he was targeted by it. Our good friend, Dr. John Eastman. John, good to have you on the show.
Mr. Solomon, it's always a pleasure, and you have such a wise audience to be listening to your show all the time and become wiser because of it.
Oh, I love it. I feel very lucky that anyone at all listens to me, and it's a fun thing. All right, I want to take a look at this dynamic. For 4 or 5 years, the city got more and more unsafe here in the nation's capital. People are afraid to come here as a tourist. People who live here. One of the big jokes is whose car got stolen last night? Because every night there's this massive amount of car thefts. Now all of a sudden the president jumps in, and in just a few short days, we've got a deterrence system on the ground, in people being arrested who've been walking without any deterrence for a long time. How big a moment is this, and how will the courts look at it as the D.C. Attorney General tries to undo what Donald Trump has just set in motion for success?
Well, I think the courts have to uphold what President Trump is doing, because I've not looked and done a deep dive onto these statutes, but as I understand the statute, he has explicit authority to do this. It was part of the Home Rule statutes. Now, he can only do it for 30 days without seeking an additional extension from Congress, as I understand it. But if 30 days things are cleaned up and they don't give him an extension and it goes back to the status quo that he's dealing with, I think Congress will be under intense pressure to extend that, or even go more broadly and say, if you're not going to take care of the safety of our nation's capital, we're going to get rid of home rule, because this is something that is impacting the entire nation. In fact, our standing on the world stage. So I think what President Trump has done here is bold, but it's authorized. And if it doesn't get extended so that he can accomplish the mission, I suspect it will be in short order.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. And I think on the law, you're right, those first 30 days, he's got absolute authority. And then it'll be interesting to see if Congress, appreciating the sudden change in the city, this gives him a little bit more time to get this fixed and back on its feet again, because it's not hard to fix. One of the most shocking parts of this march towards a more secure Capitol was seeing this whistleblower, this officer, who could prove in email and documents that they were manipulating the crime statistics. They were trying to make it look safer than it was, and explains why a lot of people are like, I don't know whose crime statistics those are in D.C., but it doesn't represent my experience. Everyone would say that for years. Like, what's going on with these crime stats? It can't possibly be that safe here, because it's not. When you see police manipulating statistics to create a sense that it's more safe than it is, that has more than just the public misleading element to it. It also could affect where you resource your officers every day. How dangerous is it to manipulate crime statistics when staffing decisions and funding decisions are based in part on those?
Well, it's extremely dangerous, as you point out. I mean, allocation and assignment of resources depends on those statistics and depends on them being accurate. And if they're monkeying with the statistics, I think you mentioned you had John Lott on here. He would know this better than anybody on what's going on with this. But it's not just on the crime statistics. They do it in schools on the pass-fail statistics. They do it across the board to make it look like things are better than they really are. And therefore, we, the American people, don't have the information we need to make judgments as we give our consent to the direction of government. It's a consent to the governed problem as well as a danger problem when you're talking about police statistics. And every news headline I'm seeing attacking President Trump for what he's doing in D.C. always includes the statement that crime is down in D.C. and so what's he doing this for? And it's all designed to push a false narrative.
Yeah, and false narratives have been the vehicle of the last decade of strife in this country. We learned a lot more in the last few weeks thanks to what Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard and Marco Rubio and others have released. We now know that the Russia collusion effort, which was the beginning of a 10-year decade of weaponization, was even more sophisticated, more involved, more deeply integrated inside the FBI and CIA mission than I think we knew before. I think you said recently, and this was one of my favorite lines, that if you don't speak up, then you are contributing to the problem. That basically silence is the ultimate capitulation to this weaponization. Now, the trade-off, of course, as you learned, is when you do speak up, you might get targeted. But at the end of the day, the silence that so many people had, knowing that this was going on in front of their eyes, maybe within their own agency, it's kind of shocking to realize how many people knew the CIA and FBI were being corrupted.
Right. No, that's right. We all knew, or at least strongly suspected that this whole thing was false from the get-go. But what Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard have turned over to us is the receipts to prove it, and tie name to document, and tie name to criminal conduct that is going to hold people accountable. We just had strong suspicion before. Now you've got the goods. Yeah.
It's pretty stunning. Are we turning a corner? Is this the moment where our country says we're not going to slide any further towards a banana republic? We're going back to the constitutional republic. And if we are, if this moment is not just a illumination moment where we realize how bad it was, but a solution moment, what are some of the next steps of solution we're going to need to achieve to make sure that people in the future aren't tempted to do what they did in the past?
Well, I think several things. One, President Trump's executive orders only last as long as he has control of the executive pen. And by the way, it's the executive pen; it's not the auto pen.
How about that? A real signature.
That's right, and a bold one, almost as bold as John Hancock's on the Declaration of Independence when he famously said, "The king shouldn't have any trouble reading that." But I think it depends on two things. It depends on whether the Republicans in Congress will get over their rhinoism and actually move to get statutes implementing some of these policy changes so they don't go the way of the dodo bird the next time we have a change of administration. And that, of course, is also going to depend on what happens in the 2026 election. And I think President Trump's executive orders on election integrity are extremely important. I've thought for a long time that the common sense conservative wing of American politics had majority support among the people, but we've not seen that play out in several elections. And I think it's because they were cheating and they were dumping ballot boxes, and we're now catching on film people doing that. So that needs to be fixed. And then the third thing is the people that did it before have to be held accountable with perp walks and orange jumpsuits and convictions. Otherwise, they'll do it again the next time they have their opportunity. If all they get is slap in the wrist, slapping the wrist is worth the price if you get to have perpetual power, and they need to be disabused of that notion pretty quickly.
One of the places that I think I've been most shocked in the last couple of years, and it grew out of January 6th, but it isn't just a January 6th phenomenon, is the role that banks have played. I think we always assumed in this great constitutional republic we would have banking privacy unless a judge determined it was essential for a warrant or subpoena to issue something. But we now know banks were turning over records without any judicial requirement. They were volunteering it. And then some people were getting, like yourself, debanked just because of who they represented or who they associated with or who they defended, who they said something nice about. Have Republicans in Congress and obviously the administration signed a debanking executive order. That was big. But what do Republicans need to do to make sure that goes back to being the law of the land? I think we just assumed we'd always have banking privacy, but we assumed wrong.
Well, we did assume wrong, and so I think it's a combination of factors of how we got here. I think the corporate boardrooms of these banks had gone woke, and they didn't want to do business with conservatives, with gun shops, with Dick's Sporting Goods, and these other things. But that inclination on the boardrooms was bolstered by pressure from banking regulators who, threatened them with downgrading their status with these so-called reputational risks by taking on these kind of customers. That's utter nonsense. And the government was doing this by demanding that they turn over transactional data. And they were doing it without search warrants, as far as I've been able to tell, and just utter breach of the Fourth Amendment prohibition on general warrants. And they were scouring people's transactional data without probable cause to see if they could find something. This is the very reason we have a Fourth Amendment. That's exactly what the king was doing with his writs of assistance and his general warrants. And they've been doing this with impunity. And so not only the banks need to be held accountable for their easy and often complicit compliance with that, but the people that did that in violation of the Fourth Amendment need to be held accountable. And they need to be pointed out that, this is stuff that was so clearly a violation of established constitutional law that you don't get qualified immunity. And I hope we get some civil rights actions against these folks for doing this now that this is being uncovered and disclosed.
That was perhaps the most important thing that came out of my interview with Harmeet Dillon a couple of weeks ago, which is that they are beginning to look at these as criminal violations of civil liberties law, much like when officers in the 60s in the Deep South would beat a black person just because they were black. They got charged with serious criminal violations of civil liberties laws. They're looking at these abuses at the FBI, the intelligence community, as part of that dynamic. That's a pretty big moment. If that happens, that will send shockwaves across the landscape, right?
It will. And in addition to the criminal, those of us that were victims of this unconstitutional scheme will have Section 1983 actions or Bivens actions against the federal officials that can be pursued for monetary damages as well, including all the legal fees that people have incurred defending against this unconstitutional conduct. So we have turned a corner here, and this stuff, there will be a lot that gets resolved, even if the administration doesn't succeed with somebody like J.D. Vance in the next administration. There will be a lot that happens between now and 2028 to hold people accountable for this stuff. And it didn't come fast enough as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, it hasn't come fast enough. In fact, painfully slow. When we now see the documents that are coming out, we realize, oh my gosh, we could have known this 5 or 7 or 8 years ago. Well, our history would be so different. But I guess the fact it's coming out now is some small reprieve that we still have a chance of fixing it. And that's on our generation, I think, to do so. How important will it be that before the year is out, that there are some clear penalties that are being exacted, that we see some people arrested or charged or perp walked into in a sign that this won't be tolerated going forward?
Well, I think it's extremely important for several reasons. One, Trump's base is demanding it, and they have every right to expect it. And if it goes much longer without any actual criminal indictments to the extent they're warranted, I think people will say, oh, it's just more of the same. We're never going to get this. I think that would be a huge problem, both for election Republican prospects, but just for people now wondering if we couldn't even accomplish it under President Trump with his commitment to it, it's over. What other options do we have? And so I fear that if this doesn't happen. The second thing is, as you start rolling into the midterm elections, people don't want to have criminal prosecutions underway that might have an impact on those elections. It would be better to get this stuff sorted out sooner rather than looking like it's some October surprise for rank partisan reasons. But third, and I think most importantly, if the people that did this aren't held accountable, they'll do it again. They'll steal 2026. They'll work towards stealing 2028. And the only way you put the lid back on that Pandora's box is to hold people accountable. I think it is absolutely critical that it get done. And I was so encouraged when we talked last that this thing has been referred to a grand jury and likely not in D.C.
Yeah, there's 5 or 6 grand juries looking at different elements of it. And I think the goal is that once they gather all their nuggets, it gets all sent to perhaps Florida. I think they're looking at the Miami U.S. attorney as someone who might be able to pull it all together as the lead prosecutor. So that seems to be the strategy from my reporting. That's a big deal.
Well, it's a very big deal, but it does highlight another problem we have in the law, and that is the hyper-partisan nature of not just the D.C. court bench, but the D.C. jury pool. And it's a cesspool, and it means anybody that's on Trump's side will get convicted like a ham sandwich, and anybody that's on the other side will get let off no matter how egregious their conduct is. And we need to fix that because you cannot have a system where the seat of government is so politically skewed that you can't get a fair trial one way or the other. And I think not just a right to change venue that would help the people that are on the receiving end of lawfare, but a mandatory change of venue for the people that are on the benefiting side of lawfare in that DC swamp to a jurisdiction that is more politically balanced, so you have a fair jury of one's peers deciding these questions rather than hyper-partisan thumbs on the scale.
Such a huge moment ahead of us. I just think of the history, and every generation has faced its challenges and rose to the occasion for America, whether it's World War II and the greatest generation there, or during the Cold War. I sort of feel like that we're not just even looking at saving America, that this is really a battle for Western civilization as we know it, a law and order Western civilization. Do you think everyday Americans are beginning to understand how big the stakes are? I mean, obviously they understood a little bit last year because they elected Donald Trump, but do they understand what's at stake if this battle is lost?
What I've seen traveling all around the country since the 2020 election is that people saw that election go south very quickly and saw it with their own eyes, and then saw the consequences of anybody trying to call it out. That they are wide awake and they're watching carefully. This is why when you find that somebody that was deeply embedded in the deep state causing problems in Trump 1 ends up in a position in Trump 2, people call them out and they're fired. So, you don't get to play those games and then pretend like it didn't happen. And people are watching, and we got millions of pairs of eyes on every aspect of what's going on. Groups like Open the Books and they're all watching, and they've got followers on their social media networks who are watching, and they take the lead. So, for example, the Act Blue money laundering scandal, where little old ladies are donating tens of thousands of dollars.
Yes, I met a few,
hundreds of $15 donations a day. That is not true, and people are catching it. So I am very encouraged that American people are rising up. We get lackadaisical. We have a comfortable life, but when it's threatened, time and time again, as you've pointed out, we rise to the occasion when it becomes absolutely necessary. Not a moment before, but when it does.
It does seem like we take right to the last minute, but then we jump in the fire. It does seem that that's our history, and it feels like that moment may be upon us. John, for all the folks listening today, all the great work you do, whether you're at Claremont, online with on X, where I follow you, and I think you do such amazing thought leadership. What's the best way for people to stay in touch with your great work?
Yeah, so on X, Dr. John Eastman. They can also track my page, although it tends to lag by a bit, at the Claremont Institute, claremont.org. But I try and keep more current with updates at my Legal Defense Fund site, which is givesendgo.com/Eastman. Although even there I get a little behind when I get busy, but that's a good source as well.
That sounds like a great place to go. And you are an amazing thought leader, and your vision of how we're going to fix this, I think, is the playbook that President Trump and others are now starting to follow. Election integrity. I think it'll go to Ukraine impeachment. Russia, we know for sure we're on top of. I think we're going to learn a lot. January 6th. I think we're going to learn a lot about what happened the last 10 years and how we fix it. But it's a great honor to have you on the show today.
And thank you very much, John. I always appreciate it.
All right, folks, we'll take a quick commercial break. When we come back, more interviews, more news, more exclusive insights. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss it.
Investigative journalist John Solomon. This is Just the News Radio on SiriusXM Patriot.
Is diabetes keeping you from enjoying life's
special moments? At US Med, we understand the challenges you face, and we're here to help. With US Med, I can finally manage my diabetes without it managing me. US Med offers a wide range of services to simplify your diabetes care. Personalized care plans, convenient access to cutting-edge diabetes tech, and knowledgeable support. Plus, we'll check your insurance so your diabetes care may be covered at little or no cost to you. With US Med, I feel confident and control of my diabetes. I can finally live my life to the fullest. Don't let diabetes hold you back. Choose US Med and experience better birthdays, better adventures, better anniversaries, and better everything. Call now. US Med. Better service, better care. 800-417-0851. 800
Wow. Are we still alive? So this is part of the campus for University of Toledo. It's probably the busiest fucking place I've ever seen. That line was going out the fucking door.
Travel by train. Yes, instead of traveling around the United States on Amtrak. Traveling by train is a lot less of a headache than taking a plane.
All right, let's get the fuck out of here.
How many places you can go on an Amtrak, and there's no passports or IDs needed. Find out how to get where you're going as soon as tomorrow.
Oh shit! Fucking
travel hotline right now.
power washer people here cleaning stuff up.
To the airport and skip the lines. Call right now to book your Amtrak reservations. We service most of the United States. Do something new. Travel by Amtrak today. 800-395-0312. 800-395-0312. 800-395-0312. That's 800-395-0312. This is Patriot. I'm really excited about the fact that for the first time in a very long time, workers' wages are rising faster than inflation. You're able to buy more, you're able to do more, and we're just getting started. Conservative principles live here. Serious XM Patriot. He's Donald Trump's #1 enemy in Congress, Chicago Senator Dick Durbin. And now Dick Durbin has a new scheme, a government takeover of your credit card. Today, consumers have thousands of choices in credit cards, all with equal, strong security. But Durbin's plan is less competition and less security. And that means more risk for your credit and your identity. Tell Republicans in Congress, stop Dick Durbin's takeover of your credit card before it's too late. The dopest 90s hits on 90s on 9.
It's probably because of this shit.
Hosted by iconic former MTV DJ Downtown Julie Brown and Grammy winner singer-songwriter Lisa Lowe. 90s on 9. And listen at home with the Sirius XM app. And now, Just the News Radio on Sirius XM Patriot. Here is the story of Victor Davis Hanson and co-host Sammy Wink. So, Victor, lots of news out. Donald Trump has had some important victories that are just very significant. Number one is the CBS interview of Kamala Harris that they doctored so that she didn't look as bad as she might. In court, Donald Trump has won a $16 million payment victory, and he's going to have that donated to his library, so not just for him personally, which is I thought was really nice. I was wondering your thoughts on that victory first.
Well, there's a lot there. You know, when they use the word fake news, people got very angry. But now, if you think about what CBS was doing, they were interviewing Biden and Kamala Harris, and they interviewed Donald Trump, as you remember. And this was at the height of the campaign, and this was the top-rated news show. And now, post facto, we know that they edited Biden. We found that out recently, but they most notoriously they edited Kamala Harris. So what you basically had was the network of Edward R. Murrow, Walter Cronkite, trying to affect the outcome of an American election by
proving an interview on one side only, and that was utter corruption. And so CBS, which is in the process of being acquired by the son of Larry Ellison, decided to just pay up on the suit on the Harris editing. It was a pretty big scandal, and I think they're going to have more exposure as they look back at all of the edits for both Biden and probably Trump as well. But it's really a reminder that people say, well, Donald Trump's trying to censor the news, or he's trying to intrude into the domain of CBS. No, he's not. All he's trying to say is that you can't have a democracy if you have these multinational and transnational corporations that are trying to weigh the scales by doctoring evidence, and evidence is a interview.
Hey, Savage.
And so it was emblematic of the entire campaign, especially of Harris. We didn't find out.
How you doing, Jacob?
At the beginning that
dude, longest fucking line in the world of fucking Raising Cane's. I could have like just taken a no gig, no pay on it, but no, I'm gonna get paid. I'm gonna wait. I had to pee anyway, so once I got my order in, I went and peed. Perfect timing. So we're gonna roll with it. Stay in the campus area. We'll see if we get some tips. This is not a greatest payout on this, but and I really didn't know there was a Raising Cane's there. I was heading to the other one, so we'll see if I get a gig on it.
His appearance, his Queen's accent, his tweets, his just everything about the messenger, as well as the message that they decided that any means necessary to destroy him would be acceptable to the American people. But the American people didn't agree with him because he's a populist nationalist, appeals to the middle class. So all they did was destroy themselves, and anything that didn't destroy Donald Trump, and nothing did, made him stronger. And the final result of it is that he has a legacy of omission and commission. He did all of these things that are, we've talked about, this counter-revolutionary agenda the first 8 months, but omission is just by getting in these teeth-to-teeth, head-to-head confrontations with these left-wing iconic institutions.
Fucking tiny roads here.
He brought out the worst.
Oh, these are stupid rich people. Oh,
and he really destroyed the Democratic Party. As we know, whatever that this is now, it's not the old Democratic Party. It's a Jacobin socialist, quasi-communist base that controls the party. It's a revolutionary party. It had 4 years to use this waxen effigy of Joe Biden to put this agenda in. And now we have a counter-revolution that is trying to, I guess, erase the last 4 years of madness in 8 months. It's very controversial, but all counter-revolutions are.
This is creepy.
But I don't think CBS will ever recover. 60 Minutes has ruined its brand. It's kind of like Budweiser beer.
Yeah, there's a lot of speculation that they settled that 60 Minutes case because they had another.
I'll be right back. Let me make sure I'm at the right
where
place.
They did the same thing to Joe Biden.
Yeah,
and so they wanted to keep that under wraps and not.
And they had emails about it. Where they get killed is in discovery, so that's why Fox settled with the Dominion voting. They paid that exorbitant multi-$100 million fee because they didn't want the email exchanges to be published. And there were rumors, and there was probably credence that they were emailing among the producers, what are we going to do about Joe? He didn't sound like he was there. Can you cut that? Wait, we have to do this. I got a call from his campaign. Jill wanted us to do that. That's what they're worried about. So, and corporate money, it's not all that much. Same thing, you got to remember that this is on top of George Stephanopoulos costing NBC 16 or 17 million when he lied and said Donald Trump had been convicted of rape. He had not.
What's amazing to me is all of this stuff coming out. I know that we all kind of knew Joe Biden was crazy from almost the get-go, but throughout his term. But what's really interesting to me is that doesn't it send a message to Kamala Harris that they would rather have an adult old man in office than her. And then the whole idea that she thinks of running for anything.
What the fuck, man?
She doesn't seem very reflective.
What a lion.
I'm trying to say.
I don't know the degree of covering up, whether they had to edit Biden because of age-related dementia or edit her because of innate dementia, but or alcohol or whatever it is. There's something wrong with her because she can't use normal syntax, and she goes on to these riffs, existential riffs about being and not being and the burden of time, and she plugs them in anywhere. But
I think you once said that she has a vocabulary of probably about 500.
They said that on Fox News. They got a lot of criticism, but that was generous. The thing about her is that she got to remember that she was picked for two reasons. Two reasons. In the hysteria following the death of George Floyd, Representative Clyburn, who had won South Carolina, went to Biden and said, "You wouldn't be nominated. You were done. You didn't win New Hampshire. You did not win Iowa. And I promised you that we delivered the Nevada caucuses, but I told you that I can deliver the black vote in South Carolina, which was about 40% of the primary vote. But as a requirement, you were supposed to defer to me and the hard left wing. Now, you did the hard left wing ideologically. You're going to open the border, you're going to have the Green New Deal, but you haven't done it for me yet, and I want a black woman." And he said, yes. He said just a black candidate, but it was a black woman for vice president. And then they looked around and they thought, wow, there's the election denial of Stacey Abrams. There's Maxine Waters. Which black woman has national? Susan Rice, who lied 4 or 5 times about Benghazi, lied about WMD in Syria, lied about, she was in that infamous Obama give me the CIA analysis that I want. So they couldn't do anybody, but she was the only one because she, for two reasons, she had no record in the Senate, and the record that she did have was to the left of Bernie Sanders. She was the most left-wing congresswoman by her votes in the entire 100-person Congress. So they picked her. But
Wingstop, Maumee, Ohio.
reason. The other reason was the Spiro Agnew reason, and that was that Richard Nixon allegedly picked Spiro Agnew because he knew that the left hated him. And at some point in his presidency, from 69 onward, they would try to impeach him and maybe convict him if he lost the Senate. Hey, that was historian Victor Davis Hanson. We've got more at JustinNews.com next. Thank you so much for listening. I just got my grid doctor, 30.
Refrigerator with absolutely no problem. Very satisfied.
Living in Florida, I'm always worried about hurricanes, but this gave me confidence. Or are you just borrowing it from Wall Street and big banks? I'm Colin Plume, CEO of Noble Gold Investments, and I believe we're entering in a new economic stage, the asset era. In a world where everything is borrowed, rented, or leveraged, owning real assets has never mattered more. The simplest way to hold your wealth in physical form, gold and silver. You offer control, stability, and something most investments can't, true ownership. At Noble Gold, we help investors move from paper wealth into solid physical assets like gold and silver. Whether you're protecting your retirement or making your first investment, we'll guide you every step of the way. NobleGoldInvestments.com to get your free wealth protection kit. NobleGoldInvestments.com, because paper wealth can vanish or be inflated away, but real assets, they last, they protect. And in the asset era, ownership is everything. NobleGoldInvestments.com. Investing in precious metals, including gold, involves risk. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision.
Freedom of speech. The Second Amendment.
We are
Sirius XM Patriot.
Channel 125.
Conservative principles live here.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Jason Walker. Democrats growing concern over new data about voters. Correspondent Ken Mormon says voters are leaving the party in droves.
According to a new analysis of voter registration data by the New York Times, fewer and fewer Americans are choosing to be Democrats. The exodus is occurring in battleground states, the bluest states, even the reddest states. The Times says Democrats lost about 2.1 million registered voters between the 2020 and 2024 elections in 30 states, along with Washington, D.C., that allow people to register with the political party. Republicans gained 2.4 million. Ken reporting.
President Trump says he will fire a Federal Reserve governor unless she resigns. The director of the agency that oversees mortgage giants Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac has urged the Justice Department to investigate Fed Governor Lisa Cook. The administration accuses her of committing mortgage fraud. President Trump is vowing to take action unless she steps down.
I'll fire her if she doesn't resign.
Cook said she had no intention of being bullied to step down and that she takes any questions about her financial history seriously. Greg Clugston, the White House. Russia accusing Ukraine of drone strikes, sparking a fire at a nuclear power plant in the Kursk region early Sunday as Ukraine marked its Independence Day. That fire, by the way, was quickly extinguished with no injuries. Russia claimed then to have shot down at least 95 Ukrainian drones overnight. Thousands of homes are under evacuation orders and warnings because of wildfires in both northern California and parts of South and Central Oregon as well. The picket fire in the Napa County north of San Francisco has grown to 10 square miles. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Everybody is keeping an eye on the Fed and how an interest rate cut might affect gold prices. Gold has been hovering at around $3,400 an ounce for the last 2 months and is poised for dramatic growth with the next interest rate cut. When rates go down, returns on bonds follow. And that's why gold continues to be the safe haven asset of choice for smart investors. Are you protected? Don't wait until it's too late to profit from the back and forth from the Fed on interest rates. Right now, if you have a qualified IRA or 401k, you could receive up to $10,000 in free gold and silver when you open your retirement account with Advantage Gold. Call 800-900-8000 now or visit AdvantageGold.com and get your free gold IRA guide and find out how much bonus gold you qualify for. Call 800-900-8000 to qualify for your free $10,000 precious metals bonus when you open your qualified gold IRA with Advantage Gold. Call 800-900-8000 now. Performance may vary. Consult with your financial and tax professionals before making investment decisions. Call 800-900-8000.
If you're looking for a job, this might be for you. ICE is looking to hire another 10,000 people.
Officers with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, have been coming under fire as they arrest, detain, and deport people they say are in the U.S. illegally. But Tom Lyons, and the director of ICE, says they've been having no problem finding recruits to train as ICE officers. They want to hire some 10,000 more before the end of the year.
The good thing is we don't have to take anybody.
The latest class has been training at a facility in Brunswick, Georgia. Currently, ICE applicants must be 21 years or older and no older than 37 or 40. They know what position they're applying for. I don't know.
This is Esther.
Exclusive reporting, incisive analysis, and big newsmaker interviews. From JustTheNews.com, it's Just the News Radio on Sirius XM Patriot.
I'm investigative journalist John Sullivan, and this is Just the News Radio on Sirius XM Patriot. European presidents here, Ukraine's presidents here, NATO Supreme Leader here, all in Washington because the dynamic that Donald Trump set in motion by meeting with Vladimir Putin last night has created a motion towards some sort of a deal, whether it's a ceasefire or, as the president says, he'd prefer to have a permanent peace deal. There is action, there is negotiation, there are people meeting as we speak right now. That meeting is still ongoing. I thought I'd turn to someone who understands this dynamic as well as anyone I know. He's a former chief of staff to the National Security Council. Before that, analyst for a long time. One of the great thought leaders in the security space anywhere in the world today, our good friend, Fred Flights. Fred, welcome back to the show.
Hey, John, good to be here.
Okay, it's a rare day when this many leaders are all in the White House at one time. Just the assemblage of this much of Europe's power structure is, I mean, noteworthy, no matter what comes of the meeting, right? This is a pretty rare meeting.
Well, John, let's think about the optics of this, of President Trump sharing this meeting of these 8 world leaders, including Zelensky, at the White House. They're all expressing his support for his diplomatic efforts. It's a cordial and friendly meeting. And compare that with the attacks on Trump since Friday, calling the Alaska summit a failure, and Putin manipulated him. It was a big Putin win. I hope the American people are comparing these two images. Peacemaking is hard, and Trump started a process in Alaska. This is the next phase. He didn't commit to anything in Alaska. He said he would talk to the Europeans, he would talk to Zelensky, and he deserves a lot of credit for moving it this far. We don't know that he'll succeed, but this is what enlightened statesmanship looks like.
There's a moment in the conversations publicly where the NATO Secretary General, Mark Rutte, says the big breakthrough was the potential for security guarantees for Ukraine in any peace deal. That obviously would mean the U.S. would have to be part of that to back it up, otherwise it wouldn't have teeth. That was a pretty stunning moment, and it gave me a sense that there might, you could see a pathway to a deal just by the fact that the security guarantees.
Hey, Gio. Yeah, sorry, bud. Putting in my food order on the way home. I'm done. I am done for the night. It's been all right. Could have been better. Actually, pretty shitty because they had a German American festival here in the area, which killed us. I thought it was going to be a good day. I didn't even make $100 today. Barely. I probably did barely $100.
Yeah, those are for Trump to go that way shows his flexibility. But if Putin is willing to do it, that is a concession, and that we saw that yesterday. Witkoff said that on the record yesterday.
Yeah,
Putin had made that a concession.
I tried to even work in the shitty area, and even the orders there. I mean, dude, I had 12 orders today. 10 of them were no tip. So fuck that shit. I am not doing that.
And Starmer, obviously the French president and the British.
That last one was $3.
The British Prime Minister was very upbeat and praiseworthy.
And I waited for over a half hour for that order. Raising Cane's was so busy.
Well, if we're going to talk about security, we're going to worry about all of Europe. I wasn't quite sure where he was.
Well, I'm done running DoorDash, but I'm going to put the scanner on once I pick up my food.
Part of this, they're not crazy that President Trump's pushing this peace initiative, but they don't have an alternative. And Trump is taking over leadership. The speed which they flew to Washington.
So done.
With him, that was today, right after Friday. It's just incredible. I've never seen the diplomatic team put together so fast. I mean, it's one thing for Zelensky to come.
Yeah, I know. It's entertaining.
Jet over here. They want to be part of it. They want to influence it. But Trump is driving this train, and he's going to take their opinions on board. But he's not going to let them push him.
No worries, brother. I appreciate you finding me.
And it's going to basically not solve this war.
Yeah.
And it's not that important now, but I'm pretty much monetized solely on Rumble. If you could check my the link in my description with my Rumble channel. I'm streaming on Rumble too. That's my main channel. That's where I need the support. But I welcome you on YouTube, whatever you like. If that's what you like, that's fine. I don't care either way.
Some sort of coalition that would protect Ukraine against a future attack without us saying it's a NATO thing, because that would.
Eggsy must have gone to sleep, huh?
Am I reading that right?
I can't even see.
That's what I'm hearing. That was not one of your. I haven't heard what it's going to be, but that's what I'm interpreting from what Trump has been saying.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know yet, but I can't think of what that could mean. Now, will this mean American troops in Ukraine? I don't know that he's proposing that.
Yeah.
Tired.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting where we're headed on this moment, and yet the fact that someone used the term breakthrough, the NATO General Secretary or Secretary General saying a breakthrough, I thought that was a really powerful moment. That this is something that no one could have imagined 2 weeks ago, even maybe going into Friday, that this would be on the table coming out of a Putin meeting. It does seem like that's the energizer for everybody at the table today. What do you predict happens? They're going to meet for a long time. They're going to come up with some ideas. They're going to kind of know what the European, maybe come up with a collective U.S.-European offer back to Putin. Would that be the best outcome of a meeting like today?
I think that's the likely outcome, and there's not going to be a trilateral meeting this week because there's going to be a counter offer or.
Yeah, he got his. What did he order? Chinese.
There's a lot of cooks stirring this soup, and they all have their opinion. And
I'm good with him, man. He's my brother. He's a good guy. He's here almost every time I go live, so if he misses one, I don't care.
President Trump said at the opening of the thing was that it's not a question of if, it's when.
I love that guy.
I thought that was really a sign of how confident President Trump.
It's good to see you.
Going to be able to get a Zelensky
XXGOX.
It's
been a minute.
Maybe the other big moment today was just seeing how confident President was.
If you do pop into Rumble, I will make sure you get a membership for a month. We will do that.
We had heard Friday. I actually think it may not be this week, but I think it's going to be pretty soon, maybe in the next couple of weeks. But this is just, you can see that the people at this meeting today talking about how we wouldn't be here without Trump. There'd be no peace process, there'd be no discussions. There'll be no talk about security guarantees. This is all because of Trump's election matter.
Yeah, no, it does. And also, it's interesting to see a European group that probably.
Yes, they've had here. It's horrible in the inner city. 274.
An aberration. Today, really embracing him and appreciating the fact that only he could have pulled this up, that only American might could have pulled these sort of conversations together. It's a not so subtle shift in how Europe is.
I'm hoping to go home and be in a food coma too. Just pass out. Eat some chicken wings and go night-night. Because I got a busy day tomorrow.
It's an amazing. Think of the last coming up on the 4th anniversary.
Was everyone at? I don't know.
That feels like one of the longest in the last maybe 50 years of America.
We had a bunch of people in here earlier. I had to end the stream and then restart it, so that may have affected it. So either way, I don't care. We're just coasting home. I appreciate you being in here. But like I said, if you pop into the Rumble channel, I'll get you a 30-day membership for free.
Well, I mean, we're hearing that Putin wants the rest of the Donbass region that did not control in exchange for
this is the last order, and it's for me.
That would require Ukraine giving up Ukrainian land that it still controls in that region, which before Zelensky was not going to consider. But the reality is, and I hate to say this, but Ukraine will eventually lose territory if the war continues.
It's just a question of how many more lives they have to spend before they lose it, right?
And they will lose
above Chicago, like Milwaukee area.
Come up with a scenario where maybe we'll say they give up this territory for now.
Oh, actually, it's not that busy tonight for Sunday night. All right.
To give away that territory.
My food may already be ready. Look at that. Some poor DoorDasher. Waiting on an order.
The best of many bad options.
All right. Yeah. Let me go see if mine's ready. It's probably not because it's not due till 1:22. Yeah, I'm a bit early. I'll probably walk in there and walk out. We'll see.
This year, that history was cemented during that time. There was an unexpected diplomat in all of this, and maybe the most surprising thing that happened over the last 4 days, and that is the First Lady of the United States writing very publicly a letter to Vladimir Putin and inserting herself into that. What did you make of that? I think that might have been one of the most unexpected things of all of the developments of the last 3 days.
The First Lady is very influential with the President, and she has very strong views. She works behind the scene. I know a little bit of this when I was in the White House. And she wrote a letter about these 20,000 Ukrainian children who were kidnapped by the Russian government and brought into Russia. And it is one of several reasons that the International Criminal Court declared Putin and many Russian leaders to be war criminals. This is a war crime. And she respectfully requested that these children be returned. I think it was a gutsy thing to do.
It was amazing to me. I mean, I don't think I can think of another moment in the last 50 years where First Lady did something so overt at a really sensitive time in a foreign negotiation. But it was. I assume the president had to know what was coming, but it's a very powerful statement. It seems to me that Putin's response to that could also affect the Europeans' confidence in how this goes. If he responds the next couple of days saying, "I'd like to create reunification for these children," that would be a really substantial gesture, right?
It would be a powerful gesture, and I hope that he does that. But we need to get to the ceasefire. I don't want him to do something like that and continue the war. I can
that would be counterproductive.
I'm really
I told him well done on those wings, so it's gonna be about another 5-10 minutes. They let me have my drink ahead of time.
But it is a step he has to take.
Yeah,
and boobies.
Yeah. That is really fascinating. That is a really important dynamic to keep in mind. Europe and the future of Europe is its history, certainly its compass setting is being set at this very moment. If the president does the impossible,
I've only been to Chicago a couple of times. The second time I got engaged, so I'm still married to her, so that's a good thing.
Realign Europe. I assume one of the things is to free up more U.S. resources so we can focus on the China threat. But there's a lot else in Europe that needs to be addressed for a safer, more secure, more prosperous continent. What do you think is the next game after this? I mean, what's the next potential opportunity for the president in Europe?
Well, Europe has to take primary responsibility for defending Europe. It has to start building weapons, has to start building ships and tanks and missiles, so we can, as you said, move our resources elsewhere. But I think another major problem with Europe is the trade imbalance and protectionism, their attacks on intellectual property, their efforts to declare every U.S. tech company a monopoly. I think the European Union is out of control. It's rabidly anti-American, and I think that is another target for Trump that he'll continue to work on.
One of the European leaders I talked to over the last few days said something else to me, which is Europe is increasingly anti-liberty, that the very thing that made the European-American alliance fundamentally sound was the joint belief in liberty. But the view of freedom in Europe is so much different than Donald Trump's view of freedom and the traditional view.
Thank you, XGO. I'll see you around, brother. Hey, just watch for the notifications.
The big problem.
Are you on Rumble at all? I'm not trying to sweat it that hard, but I'm telling you,
free speech rights are.
You can say whatever you want on that app.
In a number of the European countries, and this is because the far left is so powerful in Europe. But we are seeing conservative parties, conservative candidates making headway around the world and in Europe, and maybe Trump's successes here will lead to some electoral victories for these parties and candidates in the future.
Yeah. It is pretty remarkable. He could, about a year ago, the former British Prime Minister Liz Truss was on my show, and she said something. The president saw it right away and actually commented right away. But he said, "We need a Trump revolution in Europe. We need someone who stands up for freedom in Europe the way that Donald Trump fought for freedom in America." And I keep remembering that moment, saying, if history trends in that direction, that's going to be a really remarkable prediction of what Europe needed. And I think maybe that Trump moment in Europe is occurring right now with these negotiations. We'll have to wait and see. Fred, what else are you watching? What else is, as you watch this play? What are some of the measurements? I guess Putin's reaction in the next few days will be very important.
Well, I think there are a lot of elements that were discussed in Alaska. We don't know some of them. I think there will be other compromises needed to be made by Ukraine and some compromises by NATO and by Europe. And we don't know what they are yet. I'm sure they're being talked about right now at the White House. And Trump's going to explain, basically what was agreed to with Putin and what are some of the sensitive issues that we're going to have to make some compromises if Russia also makes compromises.
Yeah, that's it. And I guess the first compromise is the belief that maybe Russia is willing to accept future security guarantees from the West for Ukraine. That's pretty remarkable. As always, my friend, we always come out of these conversations a lot smarter than we went into them. Good to have you on today, Fred. We're probably going to need you on this week again. Some big history ahead of us, but what a great honor to talk to you today.
Happy to join you. Thanks, John.
All right, folks, we'll take a quick commercial break. When we come back, more interviews, more news, more exclusive insights. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss it.
Investigative journalist John Solomon. This is Just the News Radio on Sirius XM Patriot.
At Just the News, we break the stories others in the media ignore or are too afraid to tell. We did it on Russia collusion, Hunter Biden, and the security and intelligence failures that preceded January 6th. Our stories have real impact and reach because we stick to the facts. I'm John Solomon. You can help me expand our honest, unvarnished, and unbiased reporting by becoming a premium member at Just the News. You'll get an ad-free experience and exclusive member-only access to events, and you'll be helping us dig up more truth. Join today at justthenews.com/subscribe. I don't know how anyone can get a restful night's sleep with a CPAP mask strapped to their face all night. And even without it, breathing is disrupted. And we all know how important a restful night's sleep is for our health. If you snore, you're at a heightened risk of requiring a CPAP machine later. Now is the time to stop snoring. One of the smartest, fastest, easiest ways to stop snoring is Zyppah. Zyppah, Z-Y-P-P-A-H. Zyppah is the comfortable doctor-designed mouthpiece that can stop snoring as fast as the first night. Don't be fooled by imitators. Zyppah was proven in a 600-patient clinical trial. And with over 500,000 units sold now, Zyppah is the stop snoring device of choice. No more being nudged awake for snoring. No more sleeping in separate rooms. No more feeling tired and foggy all day because you didn't get a good night's rest. This may be your best chance to solve your snoring problem now or face having to wear a CPAP mask later on. Zyppah, Z-Y-P-P-H. That's Happy Z spelled backward. Get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code SNORE, S-N-O-R-E, at Zyppah.com. At Just the News, we break the stories others in the media ignore or are too afraid to tell. We did it on Russia collusion, Hunter Biden, and the security and intelligence failures that preceded January 6th. Our stories have real impact and reach because we stick to the facts. I'm John Solomon. You can help me expand our honest, unvarnished, and unbiased reporting by becoming a premium member at Just the News. You'll get an ad-free experience and exclusive member-only access to events, and you'll be helping us dig up more truth. Join today at justthenews.com/subscribe. This is Patriot. Conservative principles live here.
The American people want deportations. They want secure borders. That's why we've had the most successful 6 months of any administration. The president has delivered on his 2 core campaign promises: defeat inflation and secure the homeland in record time.
This is Sirius XM Patriot.
He's Donald Trump's #1 enemy in Congress, Chicago Senator Dick Durbin. And now Dick Durbin has a new scheme: a government takeover of your credit card. Today, consumers have thousands of choices in credit cards, all with equal, strong security. But Durbin's plan is less competition and less security. And not
Dude, I'll give him a sign. Do you have one? It's Panaris. I didn't even look. Is yours expired yet? Whatever the name is. I don't even have.
Successful. We believe in moral order. We believe in equal justice under the law, equal application of our laws. We believe in free markets, human dignity, and the list goes on and on.
The Sean Hannity Show, weekdays starting at 10 p.m. Eastern on Sirius XM Patriot.
Engine next to me is something blurry noise.
Just News Radio on Sirius XM Patriot.
I'm investigative journalist John Solomon, and this is Just the News Radio on Sirius XM Patriot. We've had a lot of different accountability stories on Just the News lately, and all of them are really, really important. And a lot of them go to a common issue, which is, are we going to get truth in government? Are we going to get truth in science? Are we going to get truth in politics? Because for much of the last decade, we've been denied truth. And obviously, some of the legacy media are part of that. Sometimes it's bureaucrats inside the government that are part of it. Sometimes it is scientists that are giving us health edicts based on science that might have been not quite true. And I'm hinting at a great story that my colleague here had over the weekend. Stephen Richards, one of our great investigative team members. It comes from the tenacious work of a great watchdog group.
Mary back.
The work they do, we bring them out off the
top off my drink.
Trust. They do amazing things. And they've got a new one. Just when you thought that you couldn't have been misled more about the COVID pandemic, we're going to convince you you have a little more. Joining me right now, the founder and the man behind so many of these great revelations that protect the public trust does every day, our good friend, Michael Chamberlain. Michael, welcome back.
Well, thanks for having me, John. Always a pleasure to be on your show.
Oh, my gosh. We love the work you do. It's just old-fashioned oversight work. It's old-fashioned gumshoe work. But it's important because we've lost a lot of trust in our institutions, right? We lost trust in the FBI, the CIA, the Justice Department, the Congress, the media, and increasingly our public health officials. That last one could be really consequential because we're going to need to trust our public health people. But I think more and more we have reason to have distrust for the CDC. And what you found about this data on natural immunity and how they kind of manipulated a study is, to me, a reason why there is the distrust. So tell us a little bit about what your documents and what you and Stephen Richards worked on this great story.
Well, John, it kind of reminds me of that movie A Few Good Men and the Jack Nicholson character, and he says you can't handle the truth. Well, this is exactly what the CDC and NIH
All right, got my wings. Got my chicken wings.
As if we couldn't handle the truth. So, if you go back to 2021, and there was all this happening, and this was kind of when the public health officials really lost their trust that the American people had in them, just kind of it plummeted. So there was a study in Kentucky that showed, or at least the CDC portrayed that it showed that vaccine immunity was better than immunity from a previous infection. And so they put out a press release that said that in the headline. Francis Collins of the NIH, National Institutes of Health, went on Fox News and talked to Brett Baer and said, yeah, that's what this study shows, that this is superior. Well, in fact, that's not even what the study studied. The study was about people who had a prior infection and the immunity that they gained from either not getting a vaccine or having a vaccine. But also it was filled with cherry-picked data. But in the end, they just intentionally misrepresented the study and said that it meant something that it didn't mean. They didn't even look at. But it's what they said. The way they portrayed it was the way that they wanted the narrative to read in the public. And so at the same time, there was an Israeli study that actually did look at the difference between immunity from having a previous infection.
Phone's almost dead.
And immunity from the vaccines. Well, the Israeli study showed that
charged.
The immunity from having an infection was longer lasting, and it was superior to that of getting the vaccines that they were trying to push on everyone at the time.
Wondering if
and even officials within the public health and the pandemic response units in the Health and Human Services Department looked at the study, and one of the career officials said, I was essentially saying that, yeah, this is good, this is a legitimate study, and what they found, the results are legitimate, but they came out and they buried that study. They misrepresented the first study, and then they didn't report anything on this study. And one of the things that they said was, they didn't want to promote the fact that infection-induced immunity might be better than that from the vaccine, because in their words, it came at too great of a cost. So they didn't trust the American public with the truth. They didn't trust them with the information that they knew and they had themselves. They didn't trust us to make the correct decisions based on our own individual circumstances. They wanted to push the narrative that they were trying to advance at the time.
We have Dr. Jay Bhattacharya on the show from time to time. Now he's the NIH director, but he's warned for a long time that part of the danger here is that so many of the people in the public health establishment, those that are on the government decision-making side, have these sort of conflicted relationships with those who would succeed in big pharma. If you can do vaccines instead of natural immunity, somebody's going to make more money on the vaccines. Natural immunity is a free way of getting healthy. How big is the financial conflicts of interest, the pressures, the fact that regulators are thinking, I'm getting to 25 years, I'm in a senior position where I can make decisions and I could maybe butter my bread for my next job in big pharma? How much of that may play into this? Because you would think if a public health official could save someone from getting a shot because they're already protected, they do that just for convenience and safety of the patient. But it seems like there's a different motive here.
There might possibly be a different motive here, John, and certainly that's an issue that people that have a financial stake in, whether it's a pharmaceutical company or in some cases, there have been officials that at some of these agencies that received royalties from certain medications, but at the same time, they may have also been able to be involved in decisions related to them. And one of the things that I know that they've talked about in hearings on the Hill, in congressional hearings, and I think that Senator Rand Paul has been on this on many occasions, is that they are not they're not forced to make some of those public. So when I worked in the federal government, I had to come in, I had to disclose all of my investments, all of the people that I'd worked for over the last certain period of time. But some of those same rules don't always apply in these circumstances with some of these officials.
Pretty amazing. When I think people look at this, like, well, we always get lied to by our government or by politicians. If you show me a politician, I'll show you mine. There's all those jokes that we have. When it comes to medical science, when it comes to public health, our whole system rests on the trust of informed consent, which is that you give us the right information and we can make a better decision about our health. It's our decision to make. But it seems like informed consent is not a high priority when you look at the fact that these things were sort of hijacked to look like something that would actually misinform us.
John, this happened a lot during the COVID era. Is the truth was not made known to the people. The officials who were supposed to be looking out for all of us had certain narratives that they wanted to send out to the public, and the facts didn't matter in a lot of cases. They let the information out that supported their narrative, and they suppressed the information that didn't support the narrative, whether it was vaccine mandates or some of the other types of restrictions, social distancing, and some of the other mandates and things that were implemented at the time during the COVID era. It really was not a time when again they trusted the American public, and in the long run, what that did is that destroyed the public's trust in the public health officials, and that is a dangerous situation. I mean, they rely on trust. I mean, none of us, or very few of us, can go in and do in-depth research on any type of medication or anything that we have. We trust the authorities to give us good information. And when they destroy that trust, it can put people in danger.
Yeah, it can. Yeah. And the more we erode that trust by each of these revelations and what we were misled to, the more these agencies are going to have to work to regain our trust so that in the next pandemic or the next health crisis, there is that sort of public-private partnership that we have. One of the sentiments you see in this, in these great documents that you were able to get under the Freedom of Information Act, is the nanny state over the is preferred over the doctor-patient relationship, meaning an individual doctor knows their patient best, and that's the way our medical system has thrived for centuries. But all of a sudden now it looks like there's this big brother nanny state that says, we know better than you and your doctor, so we're going to force